Hey guys, how are you?
How's it
Hey, I'm doing
going?
pretty good. How are you?
Doing great. So to start, I want to ask both of you, coming up with a horror movie that kind of has its own lore, as it were, and is really kind of creating this new world for us to dive into while also having that imagery that is gonna shock audiences just by staring at it. What was one of the challenges for you guys in creating something like this, knowing that you kind of had all of these things you had to make happen in order for an audience to connect with the Hangman?
I I think the whole idea kind of started. I had the germ of an idea about this kind of Appalachian cult, father losing his son within it, and there's kind of a monster out there. And I shared it with LeJon. And after that, once we started kind of doing the outline phase of the story, I think building the world first was pretty important, just to making sure we knew exactly what was going on, what the bigger picture was, where the hangman came from, whoever, all of that sort of stuff. And then we kind of like just shrunk it back to Leon's point of view. And then it was like, okay, now we can start with Leon. He knows nothing. He's the audience for us. And then we can, every scene or every couple scenes, just like kind of expand the view of the world a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But knowing kind of what that full picture looked like, it made it easier for us to kind of continually zoom out a little bit as we were as the movie progressed, which I need.
Yeah, and kind of the piggyback off a little bit of that. It's just well, I know the question was what was difficult, but I guess as a father and Bruce is a father as well, what is difficult is to put yourself into that world and everything. But I guess what made it easy in the process was being a father and just realizing, like, man, really putting yourself in that mindset that I have absolutely no idea where my child is, and I have to, and I'm in a world that I'm unfamiliar with, and have to go through whatever and willing to do whatever to get them back. So that was it's difficult in theory, but then again, when you really put yourself in that mindset, it's not difficult at all. It's scary shit.
Yeah. Yeah, and you also, as an alumni of Appalachian State University, every time I see some story set in the Appalachian Mountains, I'm kind of like, I feel like I had a very different experience in those mountains because I see things on TikTok where people are like, yeah, that's a mimic. You don't respond. I was like, I never experienced a single creepy thing other than maybe being like, this kind of reminds me of Deliverance. Like, it was like I had very different kind of
Yeah, I
Well,
think.
time there.
Rachel, you weren't in the park where we shot the movie yet.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
clearly was in the wrong parts of the Appalachian Mountains.
I
But
think it's not dissimilar to other places that, like, as soon as you get rural enough and just Appalachia just has that feeling of just like you, there's spots there, like little one street towns with like two houses on it. I mean, just driving through where there's like, okay, if you had to call the police here, one, I don't think their service, and two, like it would take a while to get there. Like just and all the stories about hikers and campers just like taking one small wrong turn and just being lost forever, and just they find their body, way later. Like it's crazy. It's just, and that's in our backyard. So that was kind of the lawlessness, I think, was kind of what we were trying to take advantage of, rather than any existing lore.
yeah, but it is just always it's very funny because that's like a new uptick, and I'm like, I guess I like missed something. But then also our fun was we used to go to like a waterfall, and I was like, I feel like this, and we'd have to like jump things to get there, and I was like, that wasn't normal, but we were all like, this is what we do. With a movie like this, you guys are also wearing multiple hats within the movie itself too, like both behind the scenes and on camera. What for your each of you was the challenge of, you know, having all of those hats while also having written it and been working on this story?
I think the team. I think the best answer for that is the team. When you have a team, when you have people who are so in on the job and in the objective, and are willing to do whatever it takes, having multiple hats, having nine hats, it's almost you almost don't even notice it because everybody is so down for the cause, and that's what made having multiple hats or just having multiple duties and everything made it easy.
Mhm.
Yeah, one thing I think that helped for this shoot that we haven't done in the past, and one thing is that LeJon and I have collaborated a lot of, not in this capacity, but we've just done a lot of films together over the last 6, 7 years. So it's, we had a shorthand going in that, when there's a confidence and a comfortability, and a comfort level. But the other thing that we shot this movie in three like week-long blocks instead of just one long shoot, um, which definitely helped. I think the writing process a little bit because we had a script, we were very confident in the script. Then when we would shoot a week, and we were really happy with what we had, but we were also able to like kind of look at the footage and had a little break, maybe a week or two in between, to kind of tweak things and steer the ship in the right direction before it got too far one way or the other, which always happens when like, you're working your, fifth, sixth, 12-hour, 14-hour day in a row. It's just like, okay, I just want to get to the end. I'm just figuring out how to finish this shoot. When you have those breaks, you're able to take a deep breath and be like, okay, what's the best version of the next thing we're shooting? And is everything we just shot the best version of what it's supposed to be? So that helped a lot in terms of not feeling totally overwhelmed as we are going through the process.
Yeah, and you know, I also love this boom we're currently having in horror because it is especially like they've been good horror movies and not just kind of like the cheesy, yeah, it's a horror movie that everyone wants to see. And we have like a wide range of stuff you can show new horror fans, stuff that like legitimate fans of the genre can kind of dive into. And for you guys who you've said you worked together before and everything, what is it about horror as a genre that just really makes it, it's not necessarily easy, but like makes it fascinating to kind of tell a story within that genre?
For me personally, it's I'm a fan of horror. I've always been a fan of horror, but also just as a filmmaker, I think there's two parts to it. I think we all know that like horror fans are like the best fans, and also the some of the only fans that will show up for a horror movie that they've never heard of who's in it. They've never heard of what the IP or lack of IP is. They don't care that much about the budget as long as it's scaring them. So I think when you're making a movie, besides just being a fan, and when you gear towards horror, there's an audience for it. If you do the job, if you do a good job, if you make a movie, I've been part of other people that indie rom-coms or indie things like that, and it's really hard to find an audience for that. And so that's the first part. Second part for me is just it's just so fun to make. It really is. Like as far when you compare it to any other genres I've worked on, it's just like there's there's something about being on a horror set and trying to do a gag or trying to nail a scare, or trying to do something like that that is so much fun, so exhausting, but you just get that thrill. So yeah, that's for me anyway.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
about you, John?
some. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not even sure if Bruce knows this. Bruce was his one of his films, Dawn of the Beast, was the first horror film I ever did, and uh for me, this is kind of a noob answer, if you will, but I always saw horror as that genre that is the most tough to emulate because we can all have a love story. We can all be action heroes with our kids and things like that. We can all be comedics with our kids, which I know I always try to be with my kids and everything. But horror is that one area where it's like, man, in my walking days in my life, I probably will never get anything close to that, and that's what makes it so intriguing. And that's what makes it intriguing for me.
Yeah. And for our last real quick question, I have to ask you guys because this reminded me of like stories that we were told as kids about our hometowns. Just because like we used to have the Green Man, which apparently was a guy who got hit by lightning and was green. I don't remember, but everyone kind of has those myths and legends that they know. Was there one that you guys had growing up that you, while making this, were like, yeah, I remember that's like this thing that they used to tell us when we were kids?
Absolutely. It was Boogeyman for me. Boogeyman was always underneath the bed. He was always in the closet. And if I didn't, do what I had to do before bed and everything like that, Boogeyman was coming. And Boogeyman was an inspiration to get the hell away from the Hangman.
I had a weird my dad, and he's not like I'm gonna just say something about him, but this doesn't define him because he's not that crazy. But I did find a whole package of envelopes with cutout Bigfoot articles, and like from all the way going back into the 70s, just growing up, and he just had a fascination with Bigfoot, and so yeah, that was event. Yeah, the Bigfoot was the big one. We go out. He knew a lot of the mythology, most of the mythology, and where to go. And there you go. So that was a big one for me, was yeah, and especially just growing up, it being treated like, no, this is a real thing. Like there was evidence for it. That was what I was told anyway.
No, it's real, trust me. I love it. But thank you guys so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait for everyone to get to see the movie.
Thank you.